Right, good morning everyone. Well, welcome to the English segment of your conference. We are excited to have you here. I know that for maths and science, that's where you pay your attention, because if I can speak English, I can do the subject, right? Which is half true, but we're going to teach you a few tricks. It's a lot of information that's going to come your way. Write down as much as you can, because our documents are just a mirror of what we're going to do here. It's not an exact match, so please write down. I'm going to specifically look at paper 1 and 3. I'm Mrs. Kruger, and I'm going to show you how to squeeze the most marks out of your papers here. Now, very often what we see with paper 1 is that because our candidates don't study for the paper, they kind of wing it, which, I mean, if you're on matric and you feel like, I've studied enough now, I understand that. But you are here for a reason, and that reason is for us to show you how you can get the most marks out of what you need to do. So here are the things that you really need to focus on when you study. I would advise you to write some of this down. There are brief segments in your booklet. You can add to that. And may I just mention that if you're writing your IAB exam, remember you do not have your paper 3, but this is true for everyone else. I will also every now and again tell you about how the first additional language papers differ, or what you need to focus on in specific sections. Right, so please ensure that you are aware of how that works. Right, so it's very important that you read articles. Now, some of the places you can look at, and you can circle this in your booklet, is Huffington Post. Huffington Post South Africa is where we draw a lot of our articles from, and it will be relevant to you as a teenager. So it will be something like how to succeed after matric, all of those cliche topics that we love to ask. The one big change that you need to take note of is that there is no set topic that runs throughout paper 1. So previously what we had is you'd have the comprehension, we'll match the cartoon, we'll match the advert. It doesn't work like that anymore. So please ensure that you do not cross over information from section A to section B to section C. So just in the back of your head, remember that. I also like to read the newspaper, especially go through some of the headlines for the last 6 months. You can just go onto any of our South African newspapers, News 24 and so on, and see what made headlines, so that you're aware. General knowledge for your comprehension section is vital. Right, if you don't have good general knowledge, best you start reading, even if it's a little bit each day. You need to study your figures of speech. There are 5 components to your figures of speech that you need to know. This is sit on your bum and study out of your head work. But remember, it's one thing to know it, like what is a pun. It's another thing to be able to identify and apply the knowledge. So home language learners, not only do you need to know the definition so that you can identify the pun or the irony or whatever is the case, but you need to apply the knowledge. So the question I always ask myself is, all right, this is a pun, so what? So what? How does it apply information to the context, to the comprehension? How do I write that answer into my question? Right, the next thing is poetic devices. You need to also study sound devices, because they love using that in your headline. So at sound devices, right there for yourself, will be used in headline. If your piece in the comprehension section is a bit witty, then sometimes they include sound devices because it's part of the register that they've used, right? And we all, I hope by this stage, know what register is. Okay, we'll go through all of that as we continue. Study prefixes and suffixes, punctuation, and you need to understand the functions of that. So please remember, and make a special note of this, that they've brought in 20%, especially if you're writing the government papers, 20% in addition to what you already have will be language questions. That is why in the comprehension section, it's not just contextual questions anymore. They will be asking language, right? So make note, section A must study language also. Does that make sense? Just nod, because otherwise I'm going to get bored and you're going to fall asleep. Right, you need to be able to identify as well as explain idiomatic expressions. So these are English expressions that are often used. We will not be asking an archaic one that you don't understand. Very often it would be something that you hear a lot, so look for the cliches, be able to identify them. Now here's my trick. If you don't know what it means, for example, you've only read a book once, and you haven't really been touched with idiomatic expressions, use it as a comparison and see if you can figure out what the comparison means. Make sense? So idiomatic expressions, if I don't understand what it means, figure out what is being compared to what and why. Got it? Did you write that down? Ambiguity is a big one. Circle it, highlight it, make exclamation marks. We love asking ambiguity throughout the paper. Very often it's used more than once in a different form. And when it comes to comprehension, maybe write there for yourself, ambiguity is very often about the choice of words. Which word, why is it used like this? Why is it ambiguous? Why does it have that double meaning? Now, by the way, when we're going through this, and there's a word that you pick out that you're like, I've never seen this word in my life, I can't even pronounce it. Circle it, make sure that you look it up, right? Because we're going to run quickly through this. There's a lot of information I need to impart here. Malapropism is the one. They've asked it for the last 5 years in your government papers. They also love asking it in IEB. Malapropism is one that comes up all the time, together with tautology. Right. Sarcasm, tone, and mood. Please, you need to know what the difference is between tone and mood. They will ask this in comprehension always, either one or the other. So tone is the way that the writer feels when writing the piece. Mood is the way that the reader feels when interpreting or looking at the piece. Right, and that's very important to know. Which type of word do we assign to this? It has to be an emotive word. Make sense? So something that has to do with emotion. Right, now we go over to section B and C. Now please note for IEB there will be an additional question at the end, which is question 6, and that will be your poetry component. The rest of it looks more or less the same, or it'll be question 3, it depends on the setter. Now, very important, we're going to go through section B, but section B, in my opinion, should be the second question that you answer in your paper. The order of answers should be question 5 first. Why? Because question 5 is easy peasy lemon squeezy. You should sit on your bum, you should know the work to get 10 out of 10. The second question I would answer is question 2. Then I would go back to comprehension and do question 1. So 5, 2, 1. And then you can choose between your advert and your cartoon. Now, having said that, I hope that you're aware that you do not have to answer the question from question 1 to question 5. All right? You can answer any question in any order. But having said that, you must answer, for example, 1.1 to 1.10 in order. You can't go 1.1, 1.6, 1.2. Right, that confuses the marker. We want to make this as easy as possible for the marker to afford us the correct marks. And remember, at that stage, they are going to be tired. They're going to be finished with the year. So we want to make it accessible for the marker. And having said that, please remember, in your question papers, no matter what question you write, or what paper you write, rather, always number in the middle. It differentiates, or it's a scientific thing, but if you write your number in the middle, immediately your marker knows that this is a new question, right? And then you start on the side and write your full question. If you don't know that, that's actually how you're supposed to answer your English papers, right? Especially your contextual sections. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent again, apologies. Now, when we look at the summary, remember 7 of your marks, and we'll get to the detail just now, but 7 of your marks will be for the point that you do. Yes, questions? So if, for example, you have 5.1, so you'll do question, if this is your paper, you'll do question 5 on the side, in the middle, on the next line, 5.1. Then go back to the side and you write as normal. Literally in the middle of the page. Are you with me? Okay, let me show you my page. Thank you. Give that to me quickly. So in other words, I don't know if you can see this far. You'll write your heading for your section, question 5. You'll write the number like 1.1 in the middle of your page. And then you'll just write like normal. Okay, this helps the marker, number 1, to mark quicker and more accurate. And remember what I said, we need to squeeze the most marks out of your papers. Okay, so make that note for yourself. Maybe it's something you haven't been doing at your school. Now you do that, yes? Especially for the final exam document. Right, is everyone still with me? Right, so for your section C, there are basic things that you need to know before you can actually complete this section or even attempt it. I've given you a list of things that you need to go through. So AIDA techniques for advertisement, for example. Let me just go back to cartoon. Facial expressions, body language, two different things. When I've asked you for facial expressions, make sure that it's just from the head to the shoulders. You cannot tell me about what the hands are doing. Body language from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. It has to be an action, and home language, please make note, we'll go through this again. You have to assign an emotion to it or a reaction. She's upset because her hands are up in the air, or she's standing akimbo, or whatever is the case, right? There has to be those two things for 1 mark. Did everyone understand that? You cannot separate those two. First additional language, you will maybe have those questions split. So they'll ask you about the facial expression, then they'll ask you, why does she feel this way? Or how do we know that she feels this way? Got it. Right, overthrow of expectations. So what I always tell myself is, what techniques can I use to create humor, for example? In cartoons, I'm going to ask humor. It will be one of the questions. You need to know there are certain things. Don't just tell me, it's not funny because I didn't like it or understand it, right? Your job is to figure out which technique has been applied to this cartoon, right? But we'll go into detail as we get there. Anticlimax, pun, euphemism, those things are standard. Please also write their contradictions. So under figures of speech, we have the title contradictions. That creates humor. When something contradicts what we think or what we know or what we understand, it is immediately humorous. Remember, I'm not asking you, are you rolling on the floor laughing about it? It's not about funny haha. It's about what technique has been used humorously. Right, then we go to advertisement. You need to know what AIDA is. This is something you should have learned in grade 8 to 9. If you do not know what that is, please go to our Junior Tikkie platform. We have information there to support you on all of these topics. Right, color functions. This is something that no one tells you. Even though the paper is printed in black and white, we can ask you about which colors would you use in this advert. Right, so remember that you need to know your warm colors and your cool colors. Just write it down now because you need to look it up if you don't know. Figures of speech, sound devices, poetic devices. You need to know the jargon of each section, like what is a slogan? What is a logo? What does the word headline or copy mean? Because we use that terminology to set up your questions. And I'm going to show you how to look at a question, taking a highlighter and ensuring that I answer the full question. How many of you, just by show of hands, very often get 2 out of 3 for your questions and not the full extent of it? Right, I'll show you why. There are certain things that you're missing in your answer, and we're going to tackle that soon. Right, for the language, there's a whole section. You need to know what every single item is. The biggest thing that we see with our figures of speech, our parts of speech, remember figures of speech, parts of speech, 2 different things. You need to be able to manipulate the part of speech and change it into another part of speech. Okay, but we'll get to that when we get to section 5. That's the big one that people miss in the exam. And like I said, you can score 10 out of 10 if you study that list I have on the board for you. Okay, any questions so far? Right, now even though this paper counts the least, you should score the highest marks in this paper because you can study it. There's a formula that you can use. And if you don't listen to anything else I say for the rest of this conference, if you just study this, you will be more successful than you were in your prelim and in June. Right. Right, so what are the things that you need to do? You get 10 minutes reading time. You have to read your article for the comprehension. I don't even look at the questions, but because you're going to analyze it, go to the questions. What I do in my personal capacity, I would read 3 times through the article before I even look at the questions. Right, but do look at the questions. I think they're very important. You need to ensure that you answer fully. Therefore, read the instructions that are given to you in each question. Now, on that note, I hope that all of you have 3 highlighters because you need to take at least 3 different colors into the exam. Can you write on your document? Yes. Please do. Please highlight, please circle, please make arrows if you need to. Not during the reading time, but as you work through your documents. Right. Now, what you're going to do, and I'm going to show you how to do this, we're going to look at the action words. What is being asked of me? Now, there's a list of words that you can study that tells you exactly, if I ask comment on, if I say critically discuss, each of those are very specific and have very specific answers. It is your job to study that, so make a note of that. Study question words. This is the big thing from where we go from 2 out of 3 to full marks, or even getting, more in the sections that we normally struggle in. Right, now when you're reading your paper, it is very important to look at the mark allocation. Now, just so you know, we say 2 marks, but we actually want 3 things. Write that down, it's very important. We give you 1 mark, but we actually want 2 things, especially for home language. And I'll show you how that works just now. Slide 5. Okay. Sorry, let me just go back one. I'm going to go through all of this now. Keywords, so there are 3 things you need to do. 1, highlight the question word. The second thing you do is you highlight the key information that I need. Okay, I need to discuss. What does that mean? Then, what do I need to discuss? And then you look at tone, diction, style, any of those. The third thing will come from the text, and you use that to formulate the final part of your answer. Those 3 things, if you highlight them and go back to your text and highlight, you will be very successful in your comprehension. Right, now let's look at something like diction. Now, when you get questions on dictions, you do not get any marks if you do not identify the diction, nor do you get any marks if you don't quote. So please, at diction, write a big fat note for yourself. Especially home language level, you do not get a mark for diction, no matter if you're correct, if you haven't quoted the example from the text. And there, we're going to give you a specific place to quote from. Does that make sense? When you see diction, I'm not going to ask you, please quote a word from the text. I'm going to say, discuss the diction. That implies that you have to quote from the text. At FAL level, we still ask you to quote, but for home language, definitely not anymore. And it will be 3 marks. 1 for the identification. Is it formal, informal? Is it chatty? What is it? You'll also then quote the word that supports your answer, and then you will discuss that answer with us. Right, this is very important because diction is going to come up more than once in your paper in a different form. Right, if you're getting bored, write down notes. Now, the last thing I put there is do not quote unless you are asked to. Yes? It's an explanation. So for home language level, right, first additional, you can just state the word and identify the mood or whatever they've asked you to do. The next question following that should normally be an explanation of that. For home language level, they are combined. So I'll ask you, discuss the choice of diction. That's the question. So you need to identify it, you need to quote it, and then you need to explain why has the speaker or the writer chosen to use this word in this setting for that paragraph. Does that make sense? Maybe write it down like that, because then you can structure your answer like that. Why has the writer used this word in this article in this paragraph? And remember, I'm going to say refer to paragraph 3, refer to line this or that, and make a special note for comprehensions. If you do not quote from that line or that paragraph, then the answer is wrong. That should be obvious, but we forget. We're so hyped up in the exam, we're trying to finish, that we actually lose our trail of thought there. Make sense to everyone? Right, now here's the thing, and I'm going to say it very quickly. There might be a line reference error. The line reference might be wrong, but then you need to go look at what we've asked you. If you're uncertain, you're allowed to put up your hand and say, ma'am, this question doesn't make sense. The answer they're going to give you is try your best. And that's what you do, you try your best. Okay, I know. But it happens, all right? Either a gremlin creeps into your computer or you have a brain fart, whatever happens. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that word, but there it is. It happens, so you try your best in that situation. It should be correct, but alas, worse things have happened in life. Okay, Now, here's the magic about paper 1, section A. 80% of it is level 1 to 3. What does that mean for you? It actually implies that if you get all of your level 1s to 3 correct, cognitive levels, you can get 80% for that section. Sounds like a nice one, no? All right, so that's why I'm encouraging you. Go read your question words, understand how to answer them. Go through the key components that we find in language papers like tone, register, style, right? There's a list for you. I've given you a list to study, right? Because I think paper 1, we very often feel like, oh, I'm so tired, I'm just going to wing it this time. It's not going to work for you at the end of the year when you want to score high for language to get into a good program, like being a lawyer, like being a doctor. You know what I'm talking about here, right? It'll also boost that mark that you need, your AP score, what's the thing called? APS score, yes. Right, so what do you struggle with when it comes to question 1? Now, it's very important that as we work through this, that you take down notes, because I'm going to give you some additional things that is not on the slides. So firstly, FIL, there is going to be multiple choice questions that they're going to ask you. You have to work through it and delete by eliminating certain things. So look at the multiple choice, delete the ones that don't fit. You'll end up having 1 or 2 you have to choose between, and then it becomes easier, yes? So process of elimination for your FIL phase. Also, for the first additional, you have identified questions. So make sure that you go to the relevant paragraph. We very often find that you read the question, you just answer based on what you quickly read in the comprehension piece. But if you don't actually go to the paragraph that we've asked that from, and you extract information from there, you're not going to get the marks that you need. Make sense? I know for some of you it might be like, oh, that's obvious, but it's very important to hear this again, because when we get to the exam, we are stressed, right? I don't know about you, but I get a little bit flustered there when I have so many things to answer. Right, first additional, please make sure that you read the questions or the instructions of your questions. Why? Because very often we give you a very clear indication of what we need. I'm going to ask you for a single word. That implies that if you have more than one word, I'm not giving you the mark. Okay, on that note, if I quote a whole line, but only one of the words are relevant, what do? Underline it. Okay, it goes without saying, underline what is relevant for the answer. Even better, don't write the whole line. Right, so in this section, home language, the most important thing for the end, I will post all of these for you, so don't stress too much if you don't have it now. Right, so first additional, you do not have a comparative question at the end of the section, but home language, you very well do. And we're going to discuss how to answer that, because we see the same mistakes you do all the time. So we're going to discuss how to fix that. First additional, you don't have the comparative one, but I'm going to ask you the effectiveness of the title, the effectiveness of the visual, and that's going to count 3 to 4 marks. So take note of that. That is at the end of your comprehension section. Right, like I've said then, your mark allocation, 2 marks, then I need 1 idea with detail. You have that? If it is 3 marks, I need 2 ideas plus 1 thing well discussed. So one of the 2 ideas, well discussed. I'm going to say it again because you need to write it down. It's very important. In the mark allocation, if it's 2 marks, I need 1 idea and a discussion. If it's 3 marks, I need 2 ideas or information or whatever is the case I've asked you, plus a discussion. Now, if you're nervous and you want to do a discussion of both those elements, that's fine, because then I have enough to work with, especially if you get the first one incorrect. And we really do look for marks for you, especially if you're standing on tipping over to an A or a B or a C, or just passing, right? So when we talk about specific things, jargon to study, you need to look at diction, know what that means. Look at tone, look at style, because we use those 3 to create our questions. You have to explain style, diction, and tone in context of the piece. So use the piece. Don't just write a generic answer. You know, when we do rhetorical questions, you all like to say, it's a question that can't be answered. It can actually be answered, but The point is that that is not the function of a rhetorical question. So know the function. Know that it intrigues the reader. It draws the reader in. So if you don't know that, write that down about rhetorical questions. And then add to it, because the article, blah, blah, blah. Did you hear my answer? You should write down some generic answers while we're busy. A rhetorical question draws the reader in because, and then you fill in the gap. Every article will be different. That's why there is no standard one there. Does that make sense to you? Folks, we need to write down, otherwise you're going to stare at me and nothing's going to go in, right? Because there's a lot of information coming your way. Right, verbs. You need to study your question words, as I've said before. So write that verbs there, question words. You need to study the jargon. You need to find topical sentence for each paragraph. Now let's talk about this quickly. What does that imply? When you read your article, go through each paragraph and see what is this paragraph about. Because if I ask you, discuss tone in context of the entire reading piece, you need to be able to go through all of those paragraphs and draw information from that. I don't know about you, but in the exam, there's no time to reread everything again. So even before you start answering your questions, highlight your topic sentence. Topic sentence, what the paragraph is about. Then you can quickly find the information. If I ask you, how many football players play in the league? The Bafana League, or I don't know whatever it's called. Apologies. Then we'll go from there, and we'll have a look at that. Am I running out of time?
No, sorry. I just need to get one of the learners.
Yes, you're going to call.
Yes. Hi, guys. Hi, guys. Sorry to disturb you. I'm looking for Kiorate Timangwano. Can you please step outside for me quickly? Is Kiorate in here? Sorry about that.
No stress. Okay, now I talk about generic responses. This is very important. Some of your marks come from here. I'm going to give you an example you can write down. Let's talk about personal pronouns. Why does a writer use personal pronouns in their writing? And maybe it's something you should write down. So firstly, you can either say something like it makes the piece seem like a first-hand experience, right? Or you can just say it makes it more personal. Now, when you answer your question regarding that style or the use of a personal pronoun, then you can add that. And immediately you have 1 mark without even having looked at the context. Is everyone still with me? Yeah, ask. So for personal pronouns, it either makes it personal or it's a first-hand experience. So either the writer gives us their first-hand experience, or as the reader, we get a first-hand experience. You just need to discern what is my question asking of me there. Okay, so immediately 1 out of 3 if you just state that. So here's the thing about generic responses. You can study this beforehand, correct? Lovelies? Yes. Okay, so let's go to the final part here, well, I lie, of question 1. So as I've mentioned before, you need to answer in the sequence. But my questions are set up according to the paragraphs. So my questions go from paragraph 1 to whatever paragraph. So you don't need to go look somewhere else. I will never, ever go back to paragraph 1 unless I ask something like, how does the title relate to the last paragraph? Or how does this whole thing fit into the bigger picture of the comprehension? Does that make sense? So if you are unsure of where to find the answer, say for example, the line reference is wrong, then you know that it follows in a sequential manner, and you can go back to that paragraph to look for it. Right, just a little exam hint from me to you. I often take my pen and I literally tick it off. Why do I do that? Sometimes when we're busy working, our brain actually misses a question. So when you should have 5 minutes left at the end of this paper to go back and answer questions that you've missed or that you were unsure about. Right. I know that's a silly a silly thing to do, but it's true. Okay, let's talk about lifting. I know this is a lot. Just breathe. So for lifting, what does that mean? It means that when in my answer, I have actually taken a piece, a quote, or a line, just as it is, and I've written that as my answer. You cannot do that, not for home language, not for first additional language. Did everyone hear? We can, however, quote in a clever way. Right, and we'll talk a lot about this for question 2, when we get to that part. So what do we consider for verbatim lifting, just as is? We only give you one of the 2 marks if you do that, and you don't explain. Does everyone get that? If you do blended lifting or skillful lifting, we can give you 2 out of the 3 marks. The other one has to be an explanation. Is everyone with me there? Right, and then home language, this is specifically for you, this last point. Most of you leave out the last question, the comparative question. It is the easiest question to answer in your paper. Why do I say that? Well, if you think about it, those 4 marks have 4 specific things. I'm going to ask you, how does it compare or contrast text A to text B? This is what you do. This is your formula for the last question of your comprehension section. Tell me what text A is about. Just tell me what it's about. 1 mark. Tell me what text B is about. If it's an image about someone drinking coffee, then you say, text B is an image about someone drinking coffee. There we go, 1 mark. Then you explain, what is the difference? 2 things. How does text A differ from text B? Text A, for example, is the relevant information about how caffeine affects our brain. But the image shows someone that's addicted to caffeine or drinking coffee. And that's it. We try to overcomplicate this one. This one is where you score your 4 marks for your 30. Okay. Just have a mic issue, just give me a chance. I wouldn't know if it doesn't work. Won't I hear myself? Okay, cool. Okay. Right, so I know it's a lot of information. We're going to get through this as quickly as we can, painlessly, I hope. Right, so the magic 40. Our aim first, it might be slightly higher than that, I hope, but let's just talk about passing. If you just answer the questions as they stand, by knowing the types of words, the jargon, and you just do the basics, right? The first half of your comprehension, you've already scored 40% of your entire paper. Does everyone hear? So let's work out the math. I'm not good with this. I'm a language teacher, so you might have to help me. If my paper is 70 marks, question 5, 10 marks in the bank. Question 2, 10 marks in the bank, comprehension. That's 50 marks already out of the 70. Because where do we struggle? We struggle with our adverts and we struggle with our cartoons, correct? Hopefully comprehension becomes easier after this. Right. Okay, the last thing I just want to say here, let me just see if there's anything else. Right, so here's something that we continuously miss. It's just an example here. And I've used this even though it comes from cartoons, but we talk about visual and we talk about verbal cues. This is normally for text B in section A. Verbal versus visual, 2 different things. Verbal is everything I say, everything that is quoted, every speech bubble, especially in that cartoon if it's a text B. Right, and my my visual is everything that I see, nothing to do with the words. Please don't quote punctuation there. Don't tell me she's shouting because she uses an exclamation mark. You must be able to see it on the character or on the image. Right. Let's go to summary. Summary is an interesting one because it can either go really good or really bad very quickly. Okay. Now I'm going to show you some tricks that really work well, and most people end up scoring between 7 and 10. Look, it might be the case that you are duplicating information, But that aside, okay. It is very important when you look at your writing piece for your summary, highlight the key information, the topic sentence in each paragraph. That is your starting point. Maybe write down. You need to start with writing down the summary of the paragraphs by just highlighting them on your page. Those will normally give you 7 points. I'm telling you now, paragraph 1 most likely will not have one of those points. It is an introductory paragraph. But that means that if I only have 7 paragraphs, there must be 2 in one of the other 6. There are 2 things I'm going to ask you to do for summaries. Either you're going to write facts or you're going to write instructions. So quickly write that down. Look for in facts or look for instructions. So it's something like this. Say, for example, the article is about you should wear sunblock during the hottest time of the day. If I ask you for an instruction, your sentence must sound something like, you must wear sunscreen between 12 and 3. Yes, that's the instruction. It has the words you and must. So maybe write that down. You can start each sentence like that. Is it generic? Sure, but who cares? You're trying to score points here. Or I can ask you for facts. Summarize the article. That's what it's going to sound like. And then you're going to use something like, sunblock protects you from the sun between 12 and 3. It's just a fact. Does everyone hear the difference? So make sure, especially for home language, we look for that. FAL, you write 7 sentences below each other. Home language, very important. You have to write 7 sentences, but in one flowing paragraph. The biggest thing with your summaries, and make a special note of this, is you cannot have duplication of information. Don't say the same thing twice, because you don't get marks for that. Right, I'm going to say this now. Your teacher might freak if you tell her this, or her, him, but it's going well. So when I get so excited that I talk too fast. You can actually quote a whole sentence. If you remove the comma and change it, or if you just move a few rounds a word, or just swap in a synonym, it's not lifting. And you will get the full extent of your marks there. Right. We don't tell this to the other grades because we don't want to, right? We need them to learn to summarize. But for matric level, you're trying to squeeze out the most information here. Are you with me? So lifting is acceptable, but just change the word, change the sentence structure, or even better, if it's instruction, go, you must, and then quote the rest of the sentence. There's no thing about 4 words max, and we don't care, right? We just want to see that you've taken the most information out of that summary. Okay, here's the thing, and I'm going to say this to, I hope most of you, to our very intelligent learners that are able to take the sentence and create a whole new sentence. Please don't do that. Okay? Please don't do that. Please don't change the sentence so much, because the marker that is going to mark that might not pick up or know what you've done there. The closer you are to the text here, the more marks you will get. Yes? Yeah. Look, we also do that in all of our teachings, because what are we teaching you? We're teaching you to summarize. But I'm not here to teach you to summarize. Hopefully at grade 12, after 12 years of doing this, you are able to summarize. My job is to squeeze the most out of this mark. I'm telling you, as an exam marker, I'm going to mark your paper ones. Ma'am's going to mark your paper ones at the end of the year. I don't mark summaries, but I'm part of the process. We want you to be as closely to the text as possible. I don't care if you rewrite it in your own words. In fact, please don't do that. Nationally. Remember, our NSC papers is a national paper. So our directive comes from the top down. Okay. So I know it's going to, I'm throwing around the apple cart here, not even just tipping it. I'm telling you now, you're going to go to your class and you're going to, ma'am, my conference person said this. And it's going to upset them. Okay. Maybe not do that and just keep the information for yourself. How's that? Right. Okay, so in everything that you do, and that's why I do paper 3 as well, the word count does not count. except in the summary. Okay? Write that down. Because who of you take a calculator into your creative writing paper? Yeah, please stop doing that. We don't care about the word total. I'm being serious. Okay? We will mark your 900-word essay to the last letter. Did everyone hear me? I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm frustrated when I'm writing and the creative juices are flowing and I have to stop. Right? If the time allows it, keep writing till you're done. Especially for the transactional pieces, because you end up having like a very boring conversation. If you write a dialogue, for example. Hello, how are you? I'm well, thank you. But, okay, please don't do that. All right, but we'll get to paper 3 just now. Okay, now here's the thing. Even though I tell you to write 90 words, I actually expect 90 words. Please don't be that person that writes 5 words and you're like, shop, great summary here. Right, there's not enough content for me to mark. So please, if you're below the word count, fine, because it's a summary, but don't be so far below the word count that I can't afford you marks. If I say between 80 and 90, make it between 80 and 90. There's a very specific reason. Remember, when we're setting up the paper, what do? We summarize this piece. And we check, can I summarize it within the parameters? And of course, just know that there's always more points that we write down than just 7. We normally have 7 to 9 points that we write down in our memo. Okay. Does that make sense? Are you all okay there? Can I move on? Oh, okay, I just need to mention this one. So recently we found in the marking, especially from our March papers that, you know, the people who felt that they had to rewrite or missed the paper, we found the following, that there's creative writing that comes out in the summaries. You're not being creative here. No one wants to read your essay here. Just write a summary from the text that I've given you. Okay, I know it sounds bizarre, but it happens. Do I need a rough draft? No. Please do not write me a rough draft. I don't have time to mark a rough draft. It is not creative writing. If you want to practice, if you're unsure and you want to delete, you're welcome to do that if time permits. But to be honest, you should know what you're doing here by highlighting your document and then copying directly from your document. You want to spend more of your time in your comprehensions. Did everyone hear that? Maybe make a note. Copy directly from your text to your summary. I don't need a rough draft. I know that some schools still do that. It is not necessary. Okay, so let's talk about visual literacy. Now, this is the one that makes us shake in our boots, but it shouldn't be. Now, please note that your advertisements, your cartoons, they come from media. And I'm not talking social media, people. And this is the mistake we make. We go on to, I almost said Facebook, and then I remember how old I was. We go on to TikTok, we go on to Instagram, and what we do, gave it away. And what we do is we think, they're going to ask this cartoon. I'm telling you now, we are old, the people that set this paper. We are going to use the media. We're going to use newspaper outlets. We're going to use printed magazines or online magazines. That is where my source is coming from. That is why you need to read. Even if you just read the headings, you'll see that it might link to our cartoon. It might link to our advert. Right. And are they going to be boring? Yes. Of course they're going to be boring, right? I'm looking for an advert that has a lot of writing on it. Otherwise, I can't ask any questions. Are you with me? Make sense? So, what do I need to know for this one? You need to expose yourself to more than just TikTok and Instagram, right? I don't mean Pinterest. I mean, go onto Facebook and read some articles, read a blog. Look at what is hip and happening specifically pertaining to your age group, even just the year that most of you were born. We love asking questions about that. We love asking about what does the future look like. It might be feministic. It might not. Right. It depends on who your setter is. Now, very important for visual literacy, we often find this. Who of you write one sentence and you're done for each question or each answer? It very often happens that you're like, I'll just quickly write this to answer the section. At least I'll get some marks. We don't afford marks for that anymore. Okay, so write the following. I need detailed, descriptive references to the text. It is very, very important that you write this way. And you have to relate your answer back to the advertisement. Now, I'm warning you, what often happens is you think about, say for example, we're doing a Nike or a Puma or a, I don't know, Kardashian advert. Do not use the knowledge that you have of that company and apply it to this advert. Okay? I'm telling you now, do not use general knowledge here. I know it's strange, right? Weird woman. But here's my point. I'm asking you questions in relation to what I see on the page. Does that make sense to everyone? So use the knowledge that's right in front of you. You have to know your techniques, otherwise you're going to start, as I said, they're blurring the information that you have, the knowledge that you have of a product. Okay. You need to be able to look out for things like your logo and your slogan. For example, is my logo my slogan as well? Is it the picture of my product? And I'm always going to ask you, if it's a Pantene advert and the lady sits like this, ne? Why is their product on the screen? Why have I shown you the shampoo? Why? Okay, you need to be able to answer that. You also need to think about the specific words that I use to grab your attention, and this is why AIDA is very important, the advertising technique that I use. I'm trying to think what else. Right, so very often, one of the things that we often get is very generic responses. So you'll say something like, the product is placed in the middle of the page because it grabs the reader's attention. That's great, but it will give you 1 mark. Are you with me? You need to explain to me why. Why not put it on the side? Why this product in the middle of the page? And then you need to look at, what is this advert advertising? How has it done that? So you need to know the following. Color. What colors can be used here? Lighting. How is the lighting positioned on this document? Is it a real-life photo? Is it a cartoon drawing? What does my image tell me about my product? What am I selling? Why am I selling it? This way. Write that down quickly. What am I selling and why am I selling or pitching it like this? And that's going to give you most of your higher order question answers. Now I'm going to show you how we deconstruct a question, because sometimes I think we're so overwhelmed with all the information that we just quickly answer. Look at this question. Do you see it's a very generic question? I can ask this about any advert. Account for the tone of the headline. And then I'll add the headline, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Do you see that I've highlighted in different colors? Maybe write this one down for you. This is what I meant by deconstructing. Write it down, highlight please. I want to show you how to do this. Let's go. So at least half of you are awake then. See the heads nodding off. Nice. So account for is my question word. That word tells me how much I need to say. But the next one there is the jargon that I need to know for English. And here I have the word tone. Now that is the info that I require from my knowledge that I've studied and sat on my bum, and I just regurgitate that. The last part, I think it's orange, the headline one, that is where I draw my information from the text. Now, this is going to sound like a grade 1 lesson. I want you to do that with your paper as you work through it. Why? Because look, if this counts 3 marks, account for, that's 1 mark already. The tone, identify it and possibly quote it if I need to, or tell me why. And then I need to talk about the headline. There's my 3 marks, do you see? So if you gear your brain in a certain direction, very often, even if you miss the plot here, you can get 2 out of 3. Does that make sense? Okay, right. I'm not going to talk so much about all of these sections because I want to get to paper 3 quickly. For just the last thing about the advertisements, for the FAL, I'm going to use words like 3 consecutive words, a single word. Right, IB as well. You must adhere to the instruction there. If you don't, no marks even if you're correct. Everyone got that? Cool. Right, cartoon. I'm going to go fast. Keep up. Right, visual literacy. One of the easiest marks you can get here if you know what you're doing. The biggest problem we find here is that you are unable to identify what's the difference between visual and verbal. In a cartoon, that's pretty clear, right? You have your speech bubble, and you have the person reacting to that. Now, there's just one important thing that I want to mention here, except all the things you need to study. When I'm discussing someone's attitude, or how do I know the character feels this way, or discuss Garfield's reaction in frame 1 and how that compares to frame 3, okay? For home language specifically, you have to say the emotion or the reaction. He is angry because, he is upset, he is exhilarated or whatever. And then combine that with, how do I know that? Facial expression, body language. If you do not combine those two, you do not get the mark. If I've asked you how does frame 1 differ from frame 3, and this is for IEB as well, you must show me those two things in frame 1. He feels happy and excited because his face is turned, or his smile is turned up, his eyes are wide, right? How that changes? It changes. You must say the words. It changes in frame 3 to. Did everyone hear me? You have to use the word change there. Otherwise, you don't get the mark. Okay? It changes from happy and excited, and then you'll say something like upset or angry because he's frowning, he's fuming from his head, whatever is the case. Right. You must be able to identify them. I'm warning you now, we do not accept basic terms like happy. Okay, I know. Home language specifically, we want you to use a better word. Right, you can be happy and exhilarated, two different things, yes? Synonyms. Okay. For those of you who do home language, you need to go through your political cartoons, but also your social cartoons. People like Zapiro, people like Mama Taxi, they've brought in a new one now that's a whole page. Please go look at the cartoon discussion I have on this, on the Junior Tiki platform, where I show you how to work through all of this. Right, any question there? What is the biggest thing with cartoon? Identify the humor. I'm telling you now, very often it's human folly. What do people do wrong and why do we laugh at them? Channel Trevor Noah. Okay. Question 5, I'm going to say this, it's self-explanatory. You must study this list that I've given you. It's also in your booklet, so don't stress too much. All of this you must work through them. Okay, you must work through parentheses, spelling errors, active and passive voice, error of concord, misrelated participle. I'm going through this and you're going, I don't know what that is, maybe go look it up. Okay, comma splice, we love using that as a single error, people, especially for first additional. You must be able to identify abbreviations and acronyms, contradictions, and the punctuation that goes with it. I'm going to ask you what is wrong with the sentence. It's concord. It's always concord. What's concord? No, it's not the plane. It's the one where the verb and the noun has to agree. I are going to the park is the wrong one, no? Okay, I hope you all know that. Malapropism. And here's the big one. I'm going to ask you to manipulate the language. Take a word, change it. Homophones, homonyms, parts of speech, all of that. Okay. This section, you should be getting at least 10 out of 10. Okay. This is where you sit on your bum, you take all the old question papers you can find and you work through them. If you pick up something you don't know, you look it up. Right, hopefully your teachers have given you like a list of things that you need to study with all the definitions and how to identify them. Right, here are my recommendations that we've gone through. Go through all papers. Even if it's not to practice the comprehensions, look at the choice of words and highlight them as I've shown you. See what you would have said in that situation. If you struggle with critically discuss, go through those questions. And what I shared with my matrix this year is that you're at a stage where in every single paper you're making the same mistake. Identify that mistake, even if you have to see your question paper again from prelim, and then just study that, because that's what you're struggling with. Are you with me? Look, you have enough time to go through all of this, But I would really advise you to start with the things that you're doing the weakest in. If you really struggle with advertisements and cartoons, practice. In this case, practice makes perfect. Look at the memorandum, look at what we've answered, and see if you can get close enough. Yes? All right. I'm going to run through paper 3 quickly. IEB, you don't do paper 3, so you can snooze here. Right, some general tips here. It's all in the document, so don't stress too much. And I will be uploading the slides soon, so if you're on the Junior Techie platform, please have a look, because we are running out of time because I talk too much. Okay, paper 3, the biggest thing is you cannot study an essay, take our topic, and try and merge the two. It doesn't work. What you end up doing is you take the topic and you either put it the first sentence or the last sentence of your essay. No. Sound familiar? Here's the big thing with your topics. One, you have to understand the full topic to be able to answer it. If there's one word there that you don't know, do not use that topic. The second thing is, have you seen now in our paper 3s, they put long quotes like songs or extracts from books. They expect you to use that entire quote. So if you were like, I'm just going to use the first one, the first line, you are mistaken and you will get 60 or lower. Okay, so that's just a fair warning from me to you. Yes, ask. It's literally what we mark, yes. Yes, so what I want you to do, and this is the biggest thing for paper 3 that I want to share with you, I need to see that that topic is used throughout. If I give you high heels, and that's the topic, right? I need to see that that high heel is right throughout my essay. Now, the next big thing, and you need to write this down for yourself, you cannot just have a literal response to the topic. If it is a high heel, it needs to become a metaphoric high heel somewhere else. Maybe the high heel represents power or femininity or, I don't know, some nonsense. It's creative writing, right? The rules don't matter, but the marks do. Personal? Please do. Okay, here's the thing. I don't want you to necessarily talk about Mr. Nelson Mandela. I want to talk about your long walk to freedom. Now, having said that, here's the essay that you will write. Your high school career was a long walk to freedom, right? Is that the first one that comes up? No. Please don't do that. Why am I telling you this? I'm trying to think how many. I think you're about 30,000, right, in Gauteng? That's how much we mark. So imagine if half of you wrote that. By the time the marker, day 5, comes to your pack, and you are writing that, they've seen it for 5 days already, then you're going to get a low content mark because it's an obvious response. You need to be more creative than that. Right, here is, and look, there's a lot of information here that we can go through, and I've actually gone through all of the papers in my slides, which you'll have to go look up later because I run over time. But here's the biggest thing that I can tell you. You have to make it from your own experience. There are taboo topics. Let me just get to them quickly. There are taboo topics. You cannot discuss underage drinking, sex, sexuality. Why? Because in the eyes of the department, you're seen as a minor still. I know some of you are 18, but here's the point. What are we trying to do? We are trying to squeeze the most marks out of our paper. If you trigger any of the markers, guess what your marker is going to be? Is it fair? No. Welcome to life. So hear me now. If you use any of these topics, I can't give you more than 60%, even if you're an excellent writer. Yes? Okay, so let's talk about the taboo topics. Can you work around them? Yes. But it means that you're going to have to be creative. I always say to the people who like writing about horror, because apparently that's a thing in your age group, write all the way up until the point where you almost kill or see the murderer or see the gore, and stop. Euphemism. Use euphemism. Right? Because that's more creative. I mean, anyone can write about she was lying. I'm sorry if this triggers anyone. She was lying on the floor with the gut spilled over and the blood was spewing out of her. That's wrong, no? You all know that. But right up until that point where it becomes that situation. And the scene that I observed was horrific. You see? So I kind of state it, but I don't go into it. I'm warning you, we've gotten a lot of these. These don't score high marks. Which essays score high marks? Narrative and reflective. Descriptive is so specific that if you do not describe one moment in great detail using all your senses, and then some more, and emotions, you don't score high. You love doing discursive and argumentative, they don't score high at all. Okay, I'm warning you now. We think we're really cool to do this. If you've got a math or science brain, that works for you, and you struggle with the creative stuff, fine, but then I need detail, 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 detail. And you make it up. Professor so-and-so from the University of Makeup Land. Make it up. But it must sound legit. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes, ma'am. Yes, when you do a persona piece where you step into the high heels and you take on that persona, that's beautiful. Okay, as long as you just don't stay in those high heels, maybe come, fall and then, I don't know, have to pick yourself up. Yes. Preaching. Okay, you love doing the following. One must always remember that. So you'll go on a tangent. People should understand that teenage love is beautiful. Okay, don't preach to us, right? We've lived longer, I think. Not that your experience is not valid, but once again, academic writing, you need to do a better job here. By the way, you can score the most marks in this paper because you can make it up. Yes? Sorry. So are you talking about how to do your introduction? Right. I'm going to say this quickly. You need to do either a rhetorical question. You need to do a hook sentence, so grab your audience. You can say something like, the gun went off and the sound was ringing loudly in my ear. And I turned around and I saw her face. Right, then we're all like, oh, what? What's going to happen? Okay, but that's for narrative writing. Make sure that you can use an analog like a story. You can use a quote to start, as long as it grabs my attention and I'm not bored. In an argumentative essay, you can't say, this essay is going to discuss. Okay, go through my notes on that, please. Yes? I don't know what that is. Okay, let's talk about contractions. Home language, you cannot use contractions. Okay, write it down. You can't use contractions in your essay. Can I use it in my transactionals? Yes, if it's not a formal one. So in dialogue, you can use that. Okay. Almost done, I'm sorry. Right, so these are the type of essays we look out for. Is any of the topics assigned to any of these? No. I can take a picture and write a discursive essay on it. Yes, love? You can. Okay, let me just quickly, I just want to show you this and then I'll go back to your question. Let's look at this image. That's the one thing I wanted to just quickly tell you. You have to discuss the focal point, whether that is literal or figurative, of the image. So for example, in this one, on the right-hand side, the focal point is the bridge and the water. It's not the background. It's not the hand holding. You all with me? Because we find that you discuss everything around it and never touch the topic. Okay, the same with the one there at the bottom. You need to write a positive essay there. The feeling that's created there is a positive one. So your essay must drive towards a positive one. Are you with me? Okay, just quickly transactionals, and then there's a lot more I can say, but please go through my slides as well. Okay, so the biggest thing for transactionals, know your layout. Know whether the register is formal or informal. I've gone off script, so let me just go back. Last thing I'm saying. Right, it is very important that I know the style. Is it persuasive, narrative, expository, or descriptive? And you need to know for each of your writing pieces, what am I doing? Know the layout. Know in which situation I'm going to use it. You need to edit your work. You need to know the tone. What audience am I writing for? If I'm having a discussion with my friend, I'm not going to use the same style of writing that I would for my parent or my teacher or my principal. Yes? So make sure your choice of words is correct for the tone and the purpose or the audience that I'm using. Remember, you have to look at formal versus informal register. Now, please make a note. Informal register does not mean I speak slang. There's no hashtag OMGs. There's no wanna gonna, right? It is still a formal writing piece, irrespective of my register. Everyone got that? Okay, so this comes out of our paper, one of our papers. This is one of the ones I remember marking, and most people scored 60 and below. Why? Because you missed the word. Extreme sport enthusiast. Extreme sport hyphenated means something different than extreme space sport enthusiast. And I'm warning you now, the easier transactionals, they will use a difficult word. So please read your topics carefully. Please make sure you understand the full topic. And this is normally how I go through it, because you know, we look at the transactionals, we think, oh, it's so easy, I've studied this, I can do this. And you just go. You have to plan. This is how you plan. What am I discussing? What does this word mean? Where do I see this? And then think about, what is the register? What is the style? Where will this be published? Right, one of the big mistakes we make in our obituary is what? We use I, we, us, personal pronouns. You can't do that, it's not a eulogy. It is a document that is printed in a newspaper for the family members announcing someone's death. Does that make sense? Right, so the biggest thing for your transactionals is please go through the information. If you don't have information, I've posted things that the government has also published that you can go through. Right, any questions before I end off here? Yes? I'm going to get to it now. Right, sorry, I forgot your question. Oh, middle of the story. Okay, so in narrative writing, I didn't post it here. Narrative writing, you have to have a plot. So I channel short stories. Write this down if you're a narrative writer, which most of you will be. I have to have a plot. I have to have characters. My character has to speak 5 times. Did you know that? To score higher, my character has to speak 5 times with, inverted commas, the works. There has to be a development of plot. I need to have a setting. Right. So yes, you can start in the middle of the action, but then go back. Where am I? What's happening? Create the picture for me. If I don't understand what's happening with your picture, I can't afford you the marks that you need. Right, last chance to ask any questions before we go over to paper 2. Fantastic, thank you for having me.
Right, guys, while we're handing out, I just want to talk a little bit about English in general. Mrs. Kruger touched on a very important topic of you always need to tell us why. Do you know the Backstreet Boys song? Tell me why. Okay, that is English. That's what we want from you. You need to tell me why. And that's why it's so difficult. Okay, sometimes you don't know why, but that's what we are looking for. So I just want to introduce myself today. I am Mrs. Bredenkamp, and I hope that you can take something from this weekend. You've given up your weekend, so hopefully you can go into your final exams being prepared and feeling really confident. Paper 2 is tricky when we're going to split it between FAL and home language. So I will tell you what's applicable to which subjects. So let's just get into it. So you'll see on the first page you have over there in your notes are the general challenges. Now these general challenges have been given to us from the Department of Education. These are the errors they pick up when they are marking. So the first thing is to avoid a literal response. Okay, English is all about the sky is blue, it means someone is depressed. Oh, no, don't do that. Luckily, you have the notes as well. So basically in English, the sky is blue. Does it mean it's just blue? No, it doesn't. It means someone's depressed. They're going through a midlife crisis. Life is tough. Okay, we need to look for the metaphorical meaning. It is always deeper. I explain English poetry and English literature to my students as the fact that you must always see it as two layers. The first layer is literal, yes. But underneath that, there is always an underlying, deeper meaning. And that's the point of English. Sorry about this, but you can follow with your notes. Another thing, grade 12s, read, read, read. This is going to improve your vocabulary. So one of the problems that we do have when we are marking is the lack of vocabulary. As your teachers have told you before, I'm happy. I'm sad, it's bad, it's good. Does that sound very interesting? Is that interesting to you? Eh? No. Okay. So we need to read, we need to develop our vocab. So I was just looking for different resources for my grade 12 learners, and you get Google Books on your phone, right? You can go purchase free ones, you can go purchase a couple, I think it's like 100 Rand. But what's nice with the Google Book app is that you can highlight a word and it immediately gives you the definition, synonyms, and antonyms. And that is something that you can start doing now just before your finals to prepare you a little bit more. Then the next thing is we need to know our critical thinking skills. That is why we do English. Do you know that? It's not to learn about Shakespeare and because English teachers don't want to let go of Shakespeare because we love him so much. Okay? It is not because of that. It is because we want to teach you critical thinking skills. You are going to be presented with something in your life as an adult where you don't know the answer, just like when you're reading Hamlet, right? You need to be able to figure that out, and that's what we are teaching you. That's what we want from you, critical thinking skills. And then, as Ms. Kruger mentioned earlier, it's understanding the action verbs. So I will go through that just a little bit later. On the slides, I have put it in your documents as well. Right, so the first thing we're going to move on to on the next page is the poetry essay, and this does only apply to English home language, not necessarily to IEB, but the steps that I would like to teach you on how to tackle the poetry essay as well as the literature essay are going to come together. Right. So some tips and tricks over here with the poetry essay. The question will always revolve around these specific details I've given you over there. Okay, there are 3 elements. There is structure. Highlight that. So what do we mean by structure? I mean, how is the poem structured? What are the stanzas? What does it mean? Is it a sonnet? Okay, or is it an English sonnet? Is it an Italian sonnet? Is it a ballad? Is it free verse? That's what we are looking for with structure. Then we are looking at diction. Once again, diction is very important in paper 2 as well as in paper 1. What words are we using? What do those words mean? How do those words make you feel? And what's very important with diction is connotation. Okay, what is connotation? Oh, what's connotation? Okay, connotation, feelings of the person reading it. Like when you think of the color red, what is the connotation of the color red? Love, lust, violence, hate. Okay, we are looking at connotations of words when we are looking at diction. That is very, very important. Then, along with the poetry essay, we're going to be looking at imagery. Now, yes, beautiful images, that's nice. But you need to be specific about the figures of speech that is being used. So what type of figure of speech is being used, and what image does it create? We've been marking prelims lately, and unfortunately, in the question 1, or this question for poetry, people are talking about images, but they are not connecting it to the specific type of figure of speech. So that is very important. And then, of course, tone. Just as tone is important in paper 1, it is also important in paper 2. Tone is the feelings, the thoughts of the author. Okay, what did they want to tell you? What is the message they want to imply further? So some other points here, if you just look below, is understanding what the question wants from you. We are going to look at that. We're going to go through that in a minute. Then, your essay must cover the topic. This is the number one fault that we find with learners and candidates, is that you are off topic. And I'm going to show you a little recipe about how we are going to get onto topic. It may seem juvenile, and it may seem like it takes up a lot of time, but the problem is if you miss this first step of focusing on the topic, your entire essay, whether it's poetry or literature, is going to be incorrect. And then the last point, or tip or trick over here, is to never, ever paraphrase. Okay? Never lift or copy and paste from a poem or from an extract that you get. Okay? Please don't do that with the poetry essay. You need to quote. Okay? Don't lift from it. Don't decide you think you know what's happening there. This is the poetry question that I've given you. This looks very similar to a literature essay question as well. So we will always have, in the poem, Talk to the Peach Tree, the speaker examines the plight of people who were subjected to the harsh realities of life in South Africa during the oppressive period of apartheid. Okay, we have a statement. You usually have this with the literature essay as well. Then we have the question. With close reference to diction, imagery, and tone, critically discuss the validity of the statement. And then, of course, you have your word count. Depending whether it is IAB or CAPS, it is different. So who can tell me what we need to focus on? Yeah, just by looking at the question. You must put up your hands. All I hear is... What are we focusing on? Yes, Lovey. Yes, so we are going to discuss dictionary, image, and tone, but what are we going to discuss about that? You see? Okay, this is what happens. How many of you feel when you get paper 2, you open it up, you check either the poetry essay question, or you check the literature essay question, and you're like, oh my word, I'm going to die. Right now, it's a heart attack, I'm dead. Okay, it's because you freak out. That's what happens. You freak out, it's overwhelming, and these are the steps that I want to teach you to make it less overwhelming, especially if you are not a particularly strong writer. Following these steps gives your mind structure. Right. So we're going to move into the structure. Okay, that accidentally was there. Okay, so these are just a couple of things or tips that you should refrain from when doing poetry essay and literature essay. Do not retell the story. Your markers know the poem, we taught it. We know the novel, or we know the drama, we taught it. If you retell the story, you are not going to perform well. Then, tone is formal. There are no contractions, there are no colloquialisms, there's no slang. Please, This is something so simple that you can adjust in your writing to go to the next level on the rubric. Then, write in present tense. Do you know why we write in present tense for these essays? Yes? No? I'm not sure. Please help. No. Okay. So the reason that we write in present tense is because these characters didn't exist. They are not real people. They didn't have a past. They didn't have a future. They exist now. So if you understand that, you also won't make the mistake. Writing in present tense takes you down a section on the rubric. Right, then we need to write our essays in chronological order of the text or chronological order of the poems. Okay, we're not saying that Jesus had Easter Sunday and then he was born. Okay, it's not too chronological. Right. Then, do not write in first person. When Ms. Kruger was talking about our personal pronouns, it helps for the audience to feel more connected with you. When you start writing with I, me, my, that sounds like your opinion. And that is not academic writing. Refrain from that. A way that you can help yourself with that is to say, the reader will find. Instead of saying, I think or I view, we can see, the reader can see. Eish, no. Then, please make sure to replace the he's and the she's with characters' names. Okay, we're not always sure who you're talking about. So you don't need to go excessive. So the example that I gave over here, he tells Juliet that he loves her. Who's he? Exactly. The better way to do it is Romeo tells Juliet that he loves her. You use your discretion. You are doing home language or language of instruction. Okay. So this is the first step on how to tackle a poetry essay or a literature essay. Excuse me. So I want you to get out 3 different color highlighters. Pens, pencils, whatever you have. And have the question in front of you. So the first step to my recipe is to highlight, to underline, and this is the juvenile part of this task that I'm talking about. You think that this is unnecessary. However, this is one of the most important steps because you are going to get your focus for your essays. So what are we looking for? I'm looking for, the firstly, is a direction word. What words are sending me down a very particular direction to write this essay? Then I'm looking for knowledge words. What knowledge do I need to have of this question to write the essay? And then finally, we have restriction words. What's restricting me? Okay. So now, by looking at your question, and you've got these, no, that's not allowed yet. You've got these 3 words that you need to have a look at. Who can tell me where we can find direction words in this question? What will we highlight? And just so you know, you can highlight, underline more than once. Where would be a direction word in this question? What's sending me down a very particular path of writing this essay? Sure, I know we're tired, but we need to pull through. Focus. So the direction words, look at your question there. What words are sending me down a very specific direction? What am I going to write about? Yes? Yes, we can say the plight of people in South Africa, their harsh realities, and of course, we need to talk about apartheid. That is what's in our poem. Okay. What else do we need to talk about? What direction words do we need to specifically focus on? Yes? Exactly. Validation. Okay, so yes, we need to cover diction, imagery, and tone, and we need to say how valid this statement was. Okay, so we are going to use diction, imagery, and tone to describe the plight of South Africans during apartheid. Okay, you with me? Now the knowledge words. What do I have to have knowledge of to write this? Yes? The plight of people, once again, you can underline that. How about we need to know the poem? Yeah, that's a good one. That's a first start. We need to know the poem. Okay. What else would be knowledge? Yes? Yes, we need to know how people were oppressed during apartheid. What else? Yes? Yes. Diction, imagery, and tone. Once again, we need to have knowledge of that. We need to understand in order to write this essay. Then restriction. What's restricting me? The word counts is always a restriction. That's something that you can highlight, but it doesn't necessarily feed into our topic. What's restricting me? Can I go talk about Soweto uprising? Yeah. Okay, then tell me, what's restricting me? Remember, you can highlight more than once, yes? Yes. And what else? Yes. Yes, once again, yes, we must look at the poem, but also diction, imagery, tone. Okay, so if you have a look at how I've highlighted it, okay, you can also have a look on your page. Where you have highlighted 3 times, that's what you're focusing on. Okay, that is what you are going to put in your essay. Are you with me? Yes, no, maybe, I need help. Okay. The next one is brainstorming, the next step. Now, once again, I know this seems like a futile or juvenile task, but if you do not plan the literature essay or the poetry essay, you are gonna see flames. Okay, we see it every day. So brainstorming, put down all of your knowledge on the paper, everything you know. Okay, it helps you to structure how you're going to put your essay into place, and it helps you put down the questions or put down the knowledge that you have, that you're not freaking out. That's the main thing over here. Right. So this is an example of the planning for this poetry essay. So I've made my little mind map over here. So what am I concentrating on? I'm concentrating on the plight of people in South Africa during apartheid, and I specifically need to look at diction, imagery, and tone. With the poetry essay, it's nice and it's more structured. Each figurative device is going to have its own paragraph. Okay. So, diction. Words like afternoon shadow indicate how people have gathered to discuss plans of action. The tone, the dramatic shift in the last stanza. There's the personification of the devil and comparing this to apartheid governance. And it shows the malevolence of the government at the time. The speaker wants to confront the wrongs of the past. Imagery, personification. Please, Junior Takis, when you are talking about imagery, you need to make sure that you're talking about figures of speech, not just a general image. Okay, so over here we've used personification. For example, they personified the swallows. It represented people who were coming from outside of South Africa and were able to bring information in. Okay, this is just one point. You need to put everything down here. Okay, this is just an example, and this goes and applies for the literature essay as well. Put everything you know down in the brainstorming. So the reason I tell you to do that is because perhaps you can go through your points and you can think to myself, all right, I have this point. I'm not really sure how I'm going to explain it. Cross it out. Find another point. Oh, wow, I know that I can get a point, an example, explain, and link with this. This is the one I'm going to choose. So you're giving yourself options. Right. Then we're going to have a look at the introduction as step 3. Now, I make you do your introduction at step 3 because the introduction essentially is the rewording of your question. That's all. And when you are doing your body of your essay, you can always refer back to your introduction because it's rewording of your question. So over here, it's a summary of what will be in your essay. All the elements of the question must appear in the introduction. As I said now, it's helpful to do it beforehand so that you can always refer back. Remember to underline. This is a classic, and this makes you go down in structure with marks. Underline the name of the poem, the novel, the play. Okay. Do you know why we do that? We do that because it's the name, firstly. So many of you might have been doing Othello or Hamlet, or you've definitely done Macbeth in the past. It's also a way to differentiate between character and the play. Okay, so be mindful of that. Then the second part of your introduction, you are going to state what you're gonna write in this essay. Okay, so this is the very simple recipe of how to do an introduction for literature essay, poetry essay, for a novel or a play. So in the poem, play, novel, you insert the name. By poet, author, playwright, insert the name. And then you add in the question, the themes, you sum up the question. Then you can start with this literature essay or poetry essay will discuss. Now, I know a lot of teachers do not like that. Okay, you can also always start with the reader will find. That's an alternative. So I gave an example over here. In the poem, Talk to the Peach Tree, the poet is able to describe the harsh plight of South Africans during apartheid by making use of diction, imagery, and tone. You can see over there, I've put in brackets, that is called the general statement. This is what we're looking for, always, in a literature essay, in a poetry essay. Okay, you might have been taught like that. All a general statement is the rewording of a question. Okay. Then, after that, this poetry essay will discuss how diction, imagery, and tone is an imperative part of the poet conveying the cruelty of apartheid. That's my thesis. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Okay, you with me? Questions? Yes. Yes, so you're going to insert it over here. Over here I was a little bit lazy, to be honest. Okay, you'll see it in my conclusion. Then we get to the body. Now, I personally like to teach the Peel method. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of that. Okay, or you've heard of the SIR method, etc. For me, the Peel works the best. So what is Peel? It's the meat of your essay. It's where we're going to find your marks. This is where you're going to explain to me. This is where you're going to interact with me as the marker. So you're going to take the points from your brainstorming, and that is going to be the first point of appeal. That's why I make you do the brainstorming. Then each paragraph should contain only one idea. This is another error that we find with learners, is that you're trying to stuff too much information into one paragraph. So what happens then is maybe you give me 2 or 3 points. The problem is you don't explain it, you don't give me examples for all of those 3 points. So I tell my learners the whole KISS acronym. Do you know it? Keep it simple, stupid, but we're going to change it to keep it simple, silly. Okay, keep it simple, because you're not stupid. Right, excuse me, it went again. So you need to try use quotations. It is absolutely essential to quote in the poetry essay. When you're doing literature essays, when you quote, you are considered a higher candidate. So another way to study is to always study quotes along with each section. Okay, please, if you don't remember the quotes, don't try, make it up. We know. So this is what Peel stands for. It's our point, example, explain, and then link to topic. So point, what do you want to say? What are you trying to prove to me? I like it when you do the example first. Maybe your teachers taught you other ways. But I prefer the example coming first because the example is the only time where you are allowed to retell the story. Okay, because you're giving an example. So if you do it first, you are less tempted to do it in the explanation. When I'm explaining, what am I explaining? For fun, for my health? What am I actually explaining? Yes? Yeah, well, you're explaining essentially how the point and your example is relevant to your topic. Okay, you're not just explaining for fun. Please don't do that. So an example over here, I took my imagery peel, okay? And my first point is there that its personification is used throughout the poem. That is true. My example in stanza 2, the images of the swallow is being used to compare many who were not from South Africa to migratory birds. Now my explanation. The image of the swallow helps the reader understand that people living outside of South Africa have the freedom and the choice to move freely, not only in South Africa, but around the world. This represents the lack of freedom of movement that many non-white South Africans are forced to live with due to the harsh apartheid laws. And then I once again link it back to my topic. Thus, the use of imagery is able to give the reader a greater understanding of the cruel laws non-white South Africans are subjected to. Think that's fair? Did that help you? Okay, maybe that will be in the exam. Who knows? Right, then we have the conclusion. In your conclusion, it sums up your essay. Another way to do it is to mirror your introduction. So what do I mean by mirror? You take your introduction and you swap it around. Okay. Another thing, please don't ever add new information. A conclusion is to conclude. Don't give me new stuff, because then I want to know more. So, my example over there is through the use of diction, imagery, and tone, Sipho Sepamla, excuse me, it's been a weekend, is able to convey the severe treatment of non-white South Africans during the oppressive apartheid era. Okay. Questions about this poetry essay, literature essay? There's also literature essay lessons on the Junior Taki website if you want to go through that in more detail. You sure? You good? You fine? Okay. I just quickly want to show you the poetry essay rubric. It is also in your notes. So when we are looking at the rubric over here, we always start in the moderate category. And we either go down or we go up. Oh, it's not me again. Okay. So if you are discussing better, yeah, it's fun. If you are discussing in a critical thinking way, we can see all of the examples, we can understand your argument, we can see the arguments, you are going to move up. However, if you're not giving the correct examples, if your argument is muddled, you are not making sense, you are going to go down. Now, look over here. First person, contractions, and past tense. You cannot get higher than a 3. Change that simple error that a lot of people make, and it's going to improve your marks. Then, if you have absolutely no mention of first person, contractions, or past tense, you go all the way up to the exceptional part of the rubric. Okay, it is lovely. And please don't write a creative response. Just no. Not for us, hey? Okay, now I'm going to move on to answering the poetry contextual question. So this is going to apply to home language and to FAL. So these are very important elements that we need to understand about answering questions for contextual poetry, okay? Tone, we've spoken about it. It's something that comes up all the time. You need to understand. And one of the things with tone is, how do I explain it? What do I use? What makes tone? I'm asking. Yeah, it is the writer, the author's feelings and what they want to convey, 100%. But what are the elements we look for to understand what tone means? Diction, It's not just diction. Figures of speech, yes, we can kind of see over there someone's feelings, not necessarily sound devices, but figures of speech. Syntax, you know what syntax is? Woo, hi, Borgas. It's time, eh? Syntax is the way that the sentence is structured. So is it written formally? Is it written informally? Okay, you can also, another tip over here for tone, as Ms. Kruger said, is the use of personal pronouns. The I, me, why, like the we. When I talk to you as we, I'm including you. If I say me, myself, and I, and make this disconnection and I say you, I want to remove myself from my audience. Right, then mood. What is mood? How we feel. Okay, please avoid positive, negative. Positive and negatives are the end of a battery. Okay, you need to go find synonyms to replace those words. Happy, sad, no, no thank you. You must find other words to be able to describe mood and emotion. I think ma'am put the tone wheel in. Yeah, you did. Okay, we spoke about diction. One of the things that is very important with diction and answering contextual questions is please don't lift. Don't copy and paste. Find a synonym for the word. Okay, as we've also been marking, many children make this mistake, and it's an easy one to correct. Then we have imagery. It's the use of language to make mental images and sensory impressions. Okay, I don't think I have to go over the types of figures of speech. We should be there by now. Right. So we are going to have a look at some question words and what do they mean. This is what ma'am was talking about earlier with the verbs, the action verbs. This is what we want from you. So I'll go through a couple that we see very often, but it is something that you need to go down, sit, study. So we often see account for or give an account. What does that mean? Explain, clarify, give reasons. We also have comments on the effectiveness. Who feels like that question always is not their friend? Yeah, it's not many people's friend. Okay, I'll show you how to break it down in a second. When we're talking about compare, what does that mean? What am I looking for? The what? Similarities. Cool. Contrast? Differences. Okay. Then we have define. You need to make a detailed statement with an explanation. Discuss, talk about all the words, all the ideas, give a good example to support your view. As you can see, this is a long list, so I'm not going to go through all of it now. It is something that you can go through in your own time, work towards. Actually take this document when you're doing paper 1, paper 2, and highlight and then go and see inside of a practice question paper. What do they want from you? Okay. Then we have tips and tricks for answering the poetry contextual questions. Mark allocation. Junior Tuckies, if you don't write enough information, we cannot find marks for you. Contrary to popular belief, we're not sitting there going, wrong. No, the red pen is just flying. No, we don't do that. We actually look for marks. The more you write, okay, let me actually rephrase that. The more you write logically, we can find you marks. Then, you need to use quotation marks from the poem. Well, if you're going to quote from the poem, quotation marks, absolutely essential. Then another tip or trick is to use the Peel method for the 3 to 4 mark questions that you have in poetry. That's, I think, ma'am also asked you how many of you only get 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 for those questions. You make use of Peel. Okay, that's what we are looking for. We want you to have a point. We want you to have an example, explain, and link back to the question. Then the effectiveness question, usually 3 to 4 marks. Who struggles? I struggled when I was in high school. It's a hard one. So this is how it's broken up. You need to identify the figure of speech or the sound device. 1 mark. The second mark, explain the figure of speech or the sound device in context, grade 12s. You're not going to tell me a metaphor is a comparison without using like or as. Thank you, I know that, I studied. Okay? But you need to explain it in context of the poem. So, the lion is as brave as the gladiator. Okay, you need to explain, you need to do it in context. Then, why is it effective? What job does it do? Does it convey the message of the poet or the author easier to us, a better way of understanding? Does it provide vivid imagery? Or how does the figure of speech or sound device do this? So these are just some tips for your literature essay. Use the recipe. It's there for you. If you feel uncomfortable using it, maybe take some bits and pieces and form it, put it into your own. We are looking as markers for critical thinking, not a literal response. What do I mean by critical thinking? Seeing the deeper meaning, understanding that. With your characters in your novels, in your plays, why do they do what they do? It's tell me why. I want you to remember that going into the exam. Your argument needs to be strong. We call it the golden thread. It starts from your introduction all the way into your body, explaining your arguments into the conclusion. If you are not logical, it becomes muddled. You're not going to get a good mark. Then, as you can see over there, candidates may agree or disagree with the topic. You don't have to agree, but you must make sure that if you disagree, you have evidence. I always say that the literature essay is almost like you're a little detective, and you need to prove to me that what you're saying is correct, or what I'm saying is incorrect. Then, if you're going to retell the story, you're not going to get more than a 6 or 7 out of 15 on the rubric for content. I'll show you the rubric in the next slide. Remember to focus on all elements of the topic. So, for example, our topic now, if you only focused on the plight of South Africans during apartheid's era and excluded diction, imagery, and tone, you're not answering the question. And then you must make reference to the text, and that means examples. So here is the literature essay rubric for CAPS. Once again, we start in the moderate area. Okay, if you don't understand what you're doing, or you're retelling the story, you go that side. If you have lots of points, but unfortunately, your structure isn't that correct, you're using contractions, you're using colloquialisms, you're using first person, you're going to move down there. Okay, and then all points or most points goes to the exceptional part of our rubric. Okay, questions? Rubric? Literature essay? You sure? Okay, things to avoid when writing the literature essay. I know business, you must do subheadings. Please no. Don't do that. No subheadings. No past tense, as I explained to you. Present tense means the people lived now. They didn't live really, but they had stories happening now. Then no contractions, no colloquialisms. It is the most formal essay that you will ever write at high school. Make it that way. Make sure it is formal. As we said, no personal pronouns, rather the reader, and avoid poor spelling. Please learn how to spell the characters' names and Shakespeare's name. He has an E at the end, I promise. Your punctuation, poor paragraphing, and of course, a muddled vocabulary. Then I just have some tips over here for answering contextual questions for home language and FAL. Yes, love? That you must quote. So you don't always have to quote soliloquy, but you can take points out of it. Okay. So when you are reading, the text is essential. You need to have read the book. Okay, Spark Notes, Course Hero, Cliff Notes, and YouTube is not going to save you. You need to have read the book. Okay, that's just like number one. If you haven't done that, maybe it's time, hey? You need to also, or rather make use of internet resources as an addition to your notes. Not as your notes, as an addition, please. Avoid surface level answers. Analyze. So when we're asking you contextual questions, you're going to get your little extracts. You know, you always get the extracts. We want you to look at the extract, but you need to have knowledge of the entire plot in able to answer that. These questions aren't comprehension questions. You're not going to find the answer in the extract, I promise. It's done like that on purpose. You need to have the knowledge. Then, if we are line referencing, and this is especially in FAL, if we line reference line 8 and you take something out of line 9, it is incorrect. It's not following instruction. So please be mindful of that. And as I said, don't try to answer these questions like a comprehension. Okay, questions about contextuals? Yes. You still use present tense. I know. It's very confusing, but you still use present tense. Okay, just think about present, present, present. Oh, sorry, yes? Answer that. So when you're looking at what is the state of mind, it's once again going critically deeper into the question. So let's say a character's acting out. You need to ask yourself why. What has happened in their character path, in their character plot that makes them this way? Okay. Yes. Okay, any other contextuals? I'm going to show you a couple of very common ones. Won't go through it all. But over here we have place this extract in context. Now what a lot of people don't understand about this is that we actually want you to tell us what leads up to this particular extract. That's where you usually miss your mark. You need to tell me what leads up, not what happens in the exact extract. That's a big one. Account for, provide a reason why. In context, you need to look at the context. Using your knowledge as the play, the novel as a whole, it's self-explanatory. You are allowed to take knowledge from other parts other than the extract. Then, account for, explain the change. I think, does anyone want me to go over that? Are you okay? Yes, no? You okay? Shapalapi's there. Right. I want to go specifically to stagecraft. Now, this is something that they always ask, forever and always. This is a question that will come up. Stagecraft is when we are talking about the play, about the drama, and it's when they ask your opinion on how you would stage this. Okay. So, how will you stage it? It's the body language. So let's say, how many of you are doing Hamlet? Okay, a lot. I'm going to use from there. So Hamlet's doing his soliloquy and he's all sad and he's depressed and it's what will be will be. How would you make him act? He's going to be jumping for joy. Okay? No, he's not going to be jumping for joy. You need to make sure that it matches the content. So it is about body language. And we are talking about tone as well. It's not the tone of voice. You're not going to say he's shouting or he's whispering. We want the tone in the sense of what does he want to put forward. Okay. Also, you need to motivate why the character feels or acts this way. Motivation. Then, these are places that you can find resources. It's something that I just thought I'd add in. With the NCS or for CAPS learners, just literally Google NCS past papers. There's until, I think, 2013, 2012. You can go look through all of those papers and even see the change. With the IAB, you can go and log on to the IAB website. You should have a username and a password. And you can go in there, download past papers along with the marking guidelines. And then generally, additional poetry notes, literature notes. I like Cliff's Notes. Course Hero is also really nice, as well as lit charts. Stay away from Spark Notes. I know it's nice, it has videos and stuff, but it is too surface level for matric, what are we expecting from you. All right. Then I also just quickly want to talk about the marking guidelines. This, if you go download a past paper and you download the marking guideline, this is the first paper or the first page that you will see. This is what the marker gets before we start marking. Okay, so just some important points over here is that you are required to answer from 2 sections when we are doing paper 2 for CAPS. Okay, please remember you do 1 essay, 1 contextual. If you do 2 essays, the first one you do, they mark, the second one you get 0. Same with contextual. If you do 2 contextual questions, first one we mark, second one is 0. Right, our memo is an open memo. We discuss for days on end about where we're going to give marks, because everyone thinks differently. But this is something that you can go and read through in your notes, on the website, etc. Nice thing for you, spelling. Doesn't really count, okay, when you are doing your contextual questions. If it looks like the word and we can smell like it's the word and we can feel in our heart that it's the word, we give it to you. However, literature essay, your spelling, grammar, just in general, needs to be a little bit better. Okay, if you agree or disagree, you need to have reasoning. It's the tell me why. You will never get marks for yes, no. Those days are over. You will never get marks for true, false. Those days are over. And then we have a note to the markers. I'm just going to move on to this is actually the FAL. So FAL, you can have a look over here. It's more contextual questions and so on. And then, do we have questions? Yes. Her question was? The states of mind of the director. Do you want that? Or states of mind of character. So when you're thinking of states of mind, it's always looking at the character's actions, okay, and why would they feel this way? For example, if a character is, let's really give an example you've seen at school, a child that's acting out in class. What is their state of mind? Why are they doing that? Okay, you have to think to themselves, what has happened in life? What has happened with family? Perhaps they've had a bad day, things like that. You have to look at the holistic view of why the person's doing it like that. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah. We do always take it into consideration because it's an open memo, but let's say it's a picture of like a little boy smiling playing soccer. You can't go and spin that as a negative view because he's smiling, he looks like he's enjoying himself. So just be mindful of things like that. It is open, we listen to everyone, we read everything. But if it is something where it looks positive, you can't always spin it to be negative. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
What specific word would you like to choose for that state of mind? Would it be like traumatized or like aggression or something like what would be like specifically the word? Before like
So that,
Emotion?
yeah, it is emotion around it, but it also depends on the character of your book.
I'm talking poetry, for example.
Yeah, it's emotions, things that have happened to them. Why do they act like that? You don't just act like that, you know? It's what has happened. And you need your plot and your understanding of what has happened to that character to understand why they do the things they do.